Well, hello everybody, welcome back. We're off today to celebrate what potentially could be the last day of glorious sunshine. No doubt the angry Swede, or is it a turnip? Anyway, she'll be jet-setting around the world, blaming everybody and everything. Nothing to do with the environment as she normally does, but that's having been said, we're off to Preston, the city of Preston, over in Lancashire. And there's some nice surprises in store because don't knock Preston just because everybody else does, but I'll explain when we get there. See you on the other side. Well, we've arrived and I just thought I'd show you Preston Station. I mean, I know a station's a station, very traditional. And then of course over yonder we've got the other station. I appreciate it's undergoing some renovation work, as you can see here, but these are the magnificent Lancashire County Council, or at least in Preston, buildings just opposite the station. And here's the side, or what may be the front, on Pitt Street. Let's just have a wander down and see this quite impressive sweep of a building. And as you can see, it comes along to the very imposing the entrance, which in my humble they could do with giving the coat of arms a bit of a clean up. And as you can see from the plaque, that the chairman of Lancashire County Council decided to give the late Her Majesty the Queen a tree. And here it is. I'm sure she must have enjoyed it. Bless her. Right, magnificent building though it is, let's not dilly-dally and get on into the town. There's loads to see. At least I think there is. As we head up towards our first stop at 92 Fishergate, we're just on Fishergate. Here's the Old Vic. I always thought it was a theatre, but who am I to comment? And in fact, here's some wonderful bollards, confirming that this is indeed Fishergate. Oh, just like Wilmslow, another branch of M1 Nails. And this is the Fishergate shopping centre with Poundland, which has just been sold, ironically, for £1, or at least it's in the process of being sold for £1. That doesn't include all the debt on the premises, needless to say. Well, here's a former church that has been converted to a bistrot, Pierre. Pierre has different connotations when you get to my age. Goodness me, there's a Primark looking like a townhouse. Right, you're probably wondering what the excitement is to get to number 92 Fishergate. Well, brace yourselves, it's coming up now. Well, here we are, folks. I hope you're braced. Yes, one of the landmarks, Kentucky Fried Chicken on Fishergate in Preston. So why am I getting so excited over a Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant? Glasses on because I can't see what I'm doing. Well, back in 1965, a chap called Ray Allen, nothing to do with Snooty the puppet, he met a chap called Colonel Harlan Saunders. He'd met him in 1963 and he secured the rights to the first ever chicken recipe franchise, namely KFC. And it was here almost a decade before McDonald's, Burger King and Pizza Hut. So there you go. The first Kentucky Fried Chicken in the country was here in Fishergate in Preston. Ah, there's my restaurant. Because I'm completely loca, I could do the La Viva. I have noticed a Virgin money theme going through the towns I've visited. They all seem to be in virginally horrible buildings. Just spied this quite nice looking church. It's called St. Wilfrid's. And I must be honest, I was very much attracted to the lovely frescoes. And the very, very nice looking church. Reminds me actually of trotting around Colombia and the style of churches in particular in Bogota. It's a little bit of a haven of architecture for me, this little trip out. I spy a blue plate, but I'm going to have to zoom in on it to have a look. Oh, somebody called Henry Orator Hunt. And the nice touches on this building on the corner of a street called Loon Street. And the former Midland Bank that has now become a Sainsbury's. And the NatWest, which is, well, still open, quite remarkably. Loop, that's a good name for jewellers. You, of course, know that the loop is a little eyeglass that jewellers shove into their eye to examine precious things. And there would be a nice, expensive Porsche parked illegally. It's what those owners do. This is called the Forum. Looks very nice. And I'm afraid only Frankie Howerd fans will get this one, but I wonder if any funny things happen on the way to the Forum. This is a peculiar sort of pedestrianised arrangement. It's into the morning now and there's still sort of cars driving down it. This is Guildhall Street. Now, I do know the Preston Guildhall is quite famous as a venue, but we'll have a look later on and see if we can find it. No, I can assure you, Ed's not done any fringe reviews because they're probably just people with extremely silly looking hairstyles. Mind you, it's only £6 to go and see these mad hairstyles. Above the office is looking a little worse for wear. I'd better not go down Cannon Street because I'd probably only get fired. It would seem Factory Outlet has left the building. A bit of a statue thing has caught my eye here in the distance. Where there's a nice statue or commemoration, there's usually some nice buildings. Let's go and have a look. And boo to you too. Oh, do people jump out of the bins and go boo? Ah, all has been revealed. It's a war memorial to both world wars with quite a fine building in the background. And to the right, I can only assume these are more civic and public buildings, all undergoing restoration. Very impressive, this tower. And this is the Harris Library, which is the one that's reopening soon. Magnificent building. And it's reopening sometime this year. And a side detail of the Harris Library, which says along the top, on earth there is nothing great but man. In man there is nothing great but mind. Tell that to the numpties on the train with their heads stuck in their phones the entire journey. And there we go, a better view round the back. Couldn't get in that way. But nicely around the back of the building with the wonderful tower, which is all part of the Civic Suite. And then this lovely sweep of these old, majestic law courts that are still in operation. They're the town's courts. Just opposite them, brace yourselves. Yes, it's the famous Preston Guildhall. Nowhere near Guildhall Street, and looking ever much like a stadium stand. Brutalist architecture at its best. You do have to actually wonder for a moment what goes through the minds of the planners and the council people to allow this thing right opposite those wonderful historic buildings. Although I'm not knocking the Guildhall, it's had some fabulous events there over the years. And just in front, or maybe it's behind the library, this quite interesting building, which houses an arcade. Very intriguing. And let's nip into the arcade for a bit of a nosy. See what it's all about. Oh, very traditional. Reminds me a little bit of the wonderful Victorian arcades in Leeds. Very nice. Oh, Beluga Bar and Club. Here's me thinking I might get a nice cheap jibe in about beluga lips. Never mind. As I'm outside the Miller Arcade from the other side, it looks very sad to see that I don't believe the upper floors are in use. It's a great shame. Here's someone claiming to turn phone flogging into the art of communications. Wow. Oh, tailor shop, no less. I wonder if Tailor Shop were quick at what they do, they could change the name to Taylor Swift. Just an idea. An establishment called Hogarth's, looking pretty good. And yes, all together everyone, we've got the 12 tellers, a former bank, which I presume they only ever had 2 tellers on at any one time. But what is it? Yes, it's a Witherspoons, yippee! And here we go. One of the conditions for Preston becoming a city is Preston Minster. And at the top end of Guild Row, it wouldn't be right if we didn't visit somewhere and mention the local carbuncle. Just look at that monster. Right, are you ready to brace yourselves again? This time it's for some 1980s brutalist architecture that was saved from demolition twice and is now a Grade 2 listed building. Have a look at this. Yes, it's the Preston bus station. Possibly the only bus station in the country that's actually a tourist attraction. And it is brutal. We'll just revisit with a bit more video just to give you an idea of how incredibly large it is. Let's have a quick look inside. You can actually accentuate it by standing right under it. It just doesn't seem to end. And there you go, 40 stands stretching as far as the eye can see. As I said, Grade 2 listed building. You couldn't make it up. The stands in the station can actually take 40 double-decker buses either side, so you've got a chance of 80 buses all not being on time from such a large station. Sorry, I'm being cynical. Me? Cynical? And the non-bus arrival concourse waiting area. Just, well, walk up and down it a few times and you'll do your 20,000 steps in an hour. And here's the entrance to the town hall, which is just beside the renovated or being renovated buildings. And beside the civic buildings, we've got nice covered over outdoor market with some indoor marketry further down the bottom of it. Couldn't resist a quick nip into the market hall, and it's lovely. I mean, just look at this stall here, beautiful. But yeah, nice bright, welcoming place. And just look at this for a lovely stall. Any nut and seed you could wish for. Beautiful. Mr. Wallace and Mr. Gromit, presumably the 2 local MPs here. Well, there's the cinema complex here, and this is the back end of the market we saw earlier on. And I think I'll head over there to the right because I had lunch there some 4 years ago and it was lovely. And some of the old traditional buildings with the nice architecture still lingering. The Market Tavern coming up there. And then we have to do this joke for the second time. I know I did it earlier on, but I went mountain biking in Iceland once and the security guard had a fit. Awful joke, but worth doing it again. And this presumably Art Deco style building, perhaps not such great times anymore as the occupant seems to have disappeared. Here's Duchy House and Palatine House. Not that I know the names, it's just I picked them up from the buildings. The more modern end of the city. The Room. Wasn't that a horror movie? Mind you, looking at the buildings around here, it is a bit of a horror movie. And the Magistrates' Court doesn't seem to set the standard much, does it? I just realised I owe Preston a little bit of an apology because this is all student land. From £109 a week only. Yippee! On the way to our next stop, this particular road is called Friargate. Yes, that's the name of it. Rather ironic, but it is the heart of student land. And there's the Adelphi offering all sorts of student graduation events in it. The original part of what is now the University of Central Lancashire. This is called the Harris Building. And yes, I've spied a blue plate, so let's go and have a look what it has to say for itself. It celebrates a gentleman called John Tyndall, who is Professor of Natural Philosophy at the Royal Institution of Great Britain in London. A more modern aspect of the university. And the modern student centre, presumably containing the headquarters of the National Union of Hate Mongers. Sorry, I mean students. And this former church, St. Peter's, is now an art centre. Ships and Giggles, offering Preston's biggest pizza. I presume they called it Ships and Giggles because someone remembers the old sea link of old that used to ply the Irish Sea backwards and forwards to Dublin. This is not any old student accommodation office. It's a multi-award-winning student accommodation office. Well, with due respect to the vendor, as they say in German, nicht für mir, not for me. Now, the reason for my ramble out of the centre of Preston, some 1 mile, or whatever that is in new money, 2.4 kilometres, is about to be revealed. So please get ready, start bracing yourselves, and hang on to something solid. And this is the reason. Now you might think, well, yes, it's just a church, but with a spire that is 309 feet tall, it's the tallest parish church spire in England and one of the tallest in the UK. The only exception being Norwich and Salisbury Cathedral Minsters. Right up to the sky. It's really very hard to do it justice on a small video, but take it from me, it is tall. And if you stand under it, there's a view of the actual church. If you stand under it and look up, it is actually quite dizzying. I have to confess though, there's parking outside, and I have no idea why they should put a notice like this up, because it's an extremely long walk to anywhere. So if you stay for 2 hours, you can't really go anywhere. I do wonder at times, a young mum with her young son, the son asked, what's the yellow and white flag? And the mum says, no idea. Yes, well, I do hope His Holiness the Pope doesn't take offence at that. The new Pope, that is. So as we leave St. Warburg's and its wonderful spire, with its papal flag fluttering in the background, I think it's time to head back to the city centre and get that all-important cup of tea and a sandwich. And also put the plates of meat up on somewhere. Plates of meat, feet, just trying to be cockney. Didn't work, did it? See you in a minute. Actually, as I walk back to the city centre, it might be a good time to tell you a few boring facts to prove once again that I'm not just a sarcastic, grumpy old git. On the 5th of December, 1958, the then Prime Minister, Harold Macmillan, opened the very first UK motorway, and that was the Preston bypass. And that's hence the reason for the joke that, you just bypass Preston. But as you can see from some of the architecture and things around I've shown you, don't mock Preston. Preston's Caribbean Festival, or Caribbean, depending how you want to pronounce it, first started in 1974, is one of the oldest in the country. And Leo Baxendale was born in Preston in 1930. And you're asking, who he? Well, he drew the Bash Street Kids. Sorry for the noise in the background. He drew the Bash Street Kids, Minnie the Minx, and Dennis the Menace for the Beano comic. Or as it's now called, Hansard, the official record of Parliament. In 1816, Preston became the first town in the UK to be lit by coal gas. But don't tell the Swedish angry bird or she'll be here by private jet to go and hold her placards up. And in 1832, a chap called John Livesey, he started the temperance movement in Preston. Yes, the teetotals. Or teetotalers, perhaps. It's said, actually, that a follower of Mr. Livesey, a chap called Richard Turner, sorry, I had to look down and see what that was, he actually coined the phrase teetotal because rather than just abstinence of spirits, he actually remarked, because he had a stutter, that they must insist upon total abstinence, and hence the word teetotal was invented. So it didn't take some social influencer with big lips selling products she has no clue about to invent a new word. And another fact that perhaps gives Preston a rather bad name was that in 1854, during what they call the Great Lockout, Charles Dickens visited the town, and there were approximately 26,000 or so workers were out on the streets and put out of work. So they say that Preston was his inspiration for writing Hard Times. But don't spread that around, because Preston's a nice place. And before we get down to lunch, I'm sorry, I keep talking about food. Stomach's grumbling, you see. The parents of Butch Cassidy, the famous robber, they were born in Preston, and it's said to be the reason why Butch Cassidy had a fairly deep Lancashire accent. So there you go, and you thought just cryptocurrency and internet search comparison engines were robbers. No. There was a sporting record, a Guinness Book record no less, achieved on the Fishick Hall Golf Club back in August 2000, when a gentleman called Alan Schofield achieved a record putt. For those who don't play golf, that's the end bit where they sort of stand and measure things and try to get the ball in the hole. I know nothing about golf because my biggest handicap is the golf sticks and the bag they go in. But his record putt was an astounding 166 feet 8 inches. And that's just very long. You see, even MB Chicken of Canada, whoever the heck they are, think it's worthwhile coming 3,500 kilometers to sell the same chicken as everybody else. I also must remark to say that we're in the center of student land as we wend our way back to the city center. Not much litter on the streets. Nice to see. The government and the environmentalists all wonder why we're not too keen to change to electronic vehicles when you get these people charging 85p a kilowatt hour when my own rate at home is 27 pence per kilowatt hour. Yes, okay, I know they've got to put a machine in, but that's ridiculous. Daylight robbery. Well, actually, highway robbery. And this fine old building, currently being restored, although the top seems to be a little bit iffy. They seem to have stuck some sort of modern thing at the very top, which doesn't sit well with me, but then that's just me. But I do have to say one thing. I think that this company needs to consider changing its name, because if it's leisure guard security, I think they need to have professional rather than do it at leisure. What a lovely little quaint jewellery shop. Shame it's stuck beside some sort of thingies here that... Oh. And then a clock shop. Well, sadly, complete and utter disappointment. I come down Market Street to try and find the longest row in the UK of old-style telephone boxes. But the old-style telephone boxes seem to be no more. That's the way it goes. According to a well-informed gentleman, well, he had a black bag and a suit and was eating ice cream. They were situated here. And in fact, they are the remnants. Some lovely tar macadam on the street celebrating the gone telephone boxes. Never mind. Not that I'm anybody to know, but they could do with doing some serious restoration on this fine old building. And as I said, putting back the telephone boxes that were a tourist attraction. As we leave the Harris Library behind us, we're coming down Friargate, and not being disappointed at all to find that there's several vape shops. I did read in this morning's paper that they've increased by I don't know how many percent. That's got to the stage where I think it said 97.8% of every single town in the country has at least one vape shop. Well, there's certainly no shortage of little shopping areas, pedestrianised, to have a wander around in Preston. And this caught my eye as a nice building, the Black Horse Hotel. Quite interesting. Let's just stand back and have a quick look at it. Yes, quite interesting. I love the little balconies you find in these places. You can't get out in that balcony though, because it's just a sealed window. Oh, I've just noticed. I've been told a pork pie by the gentleman of car ticketing, because I've just found the Benjamin Franklin blue plate. Plainly, he just didn't know where it was. Here it is. I'll have to just zoom in because it's way above head height. There you go, Benjamin Franklin was here. I don't know if he stepped into Cafe Nero or not. Right, I think it's my own time to make a bon marché down towards the home direction. This part of the town does seem to be the worse for wear, in as much as relatively, I won't say recent, but modern shopping centre and everything's closed down here, which I suppose is also driven as well by the fact that Hey Ho, Wilco have gone. And as we come down from the city centre, if you cross the road, there's another pedestrian shopping area up there. The special lads. Somebody's probably overstayed at a parking meter, if they have such things. A Deliveroo gentleman on his break just said, I really must nip up and have a look at the wonderful sculptures outside the Corn Exchange. Now, I don't know whether he was being funny or whatever, but benefit of the doubt, off I go. Well, we've arrived at the Corn Exchange, and I indeed owe Mr. Deliveroo an apology, because care of the Preston Workers' Memorial Day Committee, there is indeed a very strange sculpture. And there it is in real life. So I will never doubt a Deliveroo bicycle man again. And then as we wind down our visit to Preston, quick look at the Central Methodist Church. And quite an interesting building it is too. I don't know if it's intentional, but Waffle Wednesday. Isn't Wednesday Prime Minister's question time? Well, thank goodness for walking the back way to the station. I've been saved. I found a shop with a Z instead of an S. Hooray! And there you have it. My little visitation to Preston. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm really limited by how far I can go before my feet start aching, but I hope I gave you a little flavour of the city of Preston, and despite what people say, I found it very pleasant. So thank you very much for watching. So all the excitement of train travel, you couldn't make it up if you wanted to, quietly waiting for the train back home, and the one that was scheduled to go to Manchester Airport has not arrived, but one that's going to Liverpool has. So they've turfed everybody off who was going to Liverpool. They're now waiting for the train that was going to Manchester that is now going to Liverpool. If you can work that one out better than me, I just don't see the point. Anyway, so much for modern train travel.